Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live from Monday, March 24th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
And I'm today's producer, Amos.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by its listeners thanks to all of you, including John Atwood, Pat, Mike Cortez, and new patrons Lukong, Simon, Nick, and Jerome.
Hey, 4 new patrons on a Monday. Everybody loves new patrons. Thank you so much for joining our crew. And welcome to all of you to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better together. Amos, how you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well. What's going on in Alaska?
Well, it's starting to warm up. The snow that we finally got is finally fading, and we're sitting still in the upper 30s, lower 40s. It's perfect weather to go for a walk in the evening or check the mail, things like that.
Oh, love it. Tom and Roger, both out. Tom's out all week. Roger will be back on Friday. But what's really nice is that we've got a good DTNS crew here. We all help each other when folks have to be in and out. And so it is going to be a good show as always. Robb Dunewood, how are you?
Robb Dunewood is doing great. I'm loving it. The sun is shining, even though it's a little brisk. Out, but yeah, it was a good weekend this past weekend.
It is it's actually crept up. My Apple Watch says it's a high of 83 today in Los Angeles.
You're just bragging, Sarah.
I know.
You're just bragging.
You know what? I'm actually not. Anything below 80, I'm happy with. Anything above 80, I'm like, now I'm hot. It's actually really nice in here. So I'll just ride the March wave. But we do tech news on the show. So let's start with the quick hits.
Wired surveyed 730 software engineers about AI usage with mixed opinions. While some say they embrace AI daily, others resist it. The majority says they see AI as a tool to handle repetitive tasks, not a job replacement. A small group fears job loss, but many argue AI can't replace human creativity, problem solving, or debugging. The consensus, AI is transforming programming, but won't fully replace programmers.
Apple is set to bring lossless audio support to the AirPods Max through a firmware update in April. With a USB-C cable, users will gain 24-bit, 48 kilohertz audio quality, enhancing music and movies and gaming. The update also introduces ultra-low latency, which improves performance for music production and live streaming. It'll launch alongside iOS 18.4, iPadOS 18.4, and macOS Sequoia 15.4, at least as it is currently scheduled to do. Additionally, Apple's offering a $39 USB-C to 3.5 millimeter cable for wired listening.
Microsoft is expanding its AI-powered Security Copilot with 6 new AI agents to assist security teams by handling phishing alerts, data loss incidents, and vulnerability monitoring, available in preview next month and integrating with Microsoft Security Solutions to automate high-volume security tasks. Microsoft is also partnering with companies like OneTrust and Aviatrix to offer third-party security agents. Microsoft Defender for Office 365 is also set to enhance phishing protection in Teams. More updates are expected at Microsoft's Secure event on April 9th.
Google is introducing real-time AI video capabilities to Gemini, enabling it to analyze screens and live camera feeds. As part of Google One AI Premium, the feature allows users to ask questions about what they see on their screens or through their camera. The update builds on Google's previous Project Astra demo, and some users have already noticed the feature on their devices. Google has confirmed that, yes, the rollout is happening.
South Korean AI chip startup FuriosaAI has turned down an $800 million acquisition offer from Meta, choosing to focus on developing its own chips. The deal reportedly collapsed due to disagreements over post-sales plans. Meta, aiming to reduce its dependence on NVIDIA for AI chips, continues to invest heavily in AI development. Meanwhile, FuriosaAI is seeking a $48 million round in funding and plans to launch its new AI chip, Renegade, later this year in collaboration with LG AI Research.
OpenAI announced that COO Brad Lightcap's role will now include oversight of business and day-to-day operations, with CEO Sam Altman shifting focus to research and products. Mark Chen is now OpenAI's chief research officer, and Julia Villagra has been appointed chief people officer. 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy due to falling sales, with co-founder Anne Wojcicki stepping down as CEO while the company seeks a new buyer. If you're not familiar with 23andMe, you swab your cheek, you send it in, and they tell you where your ancestors are from. The company went public back in 2021 to great fanfare, suffered a significant data breach back in 2023. You might have remembered that. Now, despite this latest bankruptcy, the company says it will still sell DNA kits and maintains that its data storage and privacy policies remain intact. Now, if you're a customer worried about your data, you can download and you can delete your information, so says the company. We do not know where 23andMe's data is going to be sold to at this point, which is a sticking point for a lot of folks.
That's a huge sticking point. As into tech as I am, I have never used any of these services like 23andMe or 23andMe because I've always feared that what happens if the company gets sold? I basically don't want the essence of Robb to get into hands that I did not determine that essence of Robb should get into. And that's exactly what customers are potentially facing right now. If you're not able to get in there and delete your data out and this company gets sold, the new company is going to make the decision on what they're going to do with your data. And that is very, very problematic for a lot of folks.
Well, and I think that, I think the big question, I am not a healthcare data expert by any means, but the big question is, okay, well, people are worried that the wrong company is going to get your data. Okay, what does that mean? If the wrong company gets my DNA information, and me and perhaps members of my family, right? That have at least some of the same digital footprint as me. What do they do? What are they going to do to us? Now, I have a cousin who I spoke to recently who was like, "Oh, I would never give them my data because they can put your DNA at a crime scene." And I was like, well, why would anyone do that? And she's like, I don't know, but I'm not going to be patient zero in that sort of situation. And I was like, yeah, okay, that seems like you're, I don't know, maybe being a little worried for no reason. However, when, this stuff gets sold to a variety of companies over the course of time, what is the worst thing that can happen besides something like that scenario that my cousin's talking about, which is very unlikely, but not improbable. More likely is that an insurance company is going to end up buying it and it's going to screw up stuff where you need healthcare in the future. That's my concern.
Yeah, and that's the concern that my wife had when we signed up for 23andMe and we did the genetic testing. Is one of the options is, do you want to have the health report as part of your package? And she was adamantly no, do not do that. Not that she has outstanding medical problems or anything, but she had that foresight that the data could be going to insurance companies that could jack up things later on. I was more into the data. I was like, yeah, give me all the information you can give me, and I'll parse with it what I can. And it's been fine so far, but now that this is happening, I'm one of the people that's trying to delete my data from their server, and wow, it's not an easy process.
Yeah, so you were talking about this as we were setting up for the show today. I mean, why is it so arduous?
It's just slow. It's incredibly slow.
Maybe because a lot of people are doing it at the same time.
It could be, but I'm not getting errors like pages are getting canceled. When I'm clicking on a link, it's just not going. Like sometimes it just won't go. I have to refresh the page to get the page to properly allow me to hyperlink to the next page. And I'm not saying this is something they're doing nefariously. It's just maybe it is a lot of people doing it right now, but it is a very slow process. So be patient.
Or just something that was set up a long time ago, and they didn't anticipate this being the situation where a lot of people would want to be deleting their data. Some years ago, my mom did. It wasn't 23andMe; it was Ancestry, but same idea. you do the swab, you send it in, you get back some, interesting information about yourself and your family. And, she wanted me to do it. And it wasn't that I didn't really have, like a fear about data. I just kind of never got around to it. So I just never did it. And at this point, it's like, yeah, I don't know. Having been in the healthcare system in a variety of ways that I didn't realize I would be, a decade ago, I am grateful that the stuff isn't floating around. And again, I don't really know what bad thing is going to happen as a result of this, but I mean, if there's anything more personal than this to your person, I don't know what it is.
It is your DNA. It is your essence. You theoretically could re-engineer a Sarah from your DNA if you had the technology to do so. And these are private companies. Now, when it comes to your medical data, if you had DNA data that was collected by a healthcare provider, we at least have some laws that are in place to dictate and determine how that data can be transferred, how it has to be stored, all those kind of things. But private companies don't fall under that. Private companies they fall under what they tell you that you're agreeing to when you sign up to use their service. So when it comes to a company like 23andMe or any other company, or literally any publicly traded company, I only expect them not to do what they've contractually told me that they wouldn't do by either what they say in a terms of service or what they spell out. And, these are our metrics by the way we operate. If it's not there, I fully expect that they would sell the data to whomever they want to sell it to. So you're saying, they could sell the information to an insurance company, or they could sell the data to another data broker that maybe you would match it up with facial ID information. You simply don't know because you've given your data to a privately held company that may have had a set of rules when you were dealing with them. If that company gets sold and those rules change, now you're under the rules of the new company that buys them. So, like I said, this is one of those areas to where, as into tech as I've been, I simply just never trusted that. I don't know that I want you to have my DNA information because, that is me, and you can do with that what you will if your rules change, if your company gets sold, as is in the case here.
Yeah, I mean,
we should also mention
something like Face ID, fingerprint. I mean, can also identify you, but the DNA that's a whole other level.
That is you. It's not lost on me also. This company was worth in 2021 $6 billion. It is now worth 50 million, and 50 million and 6 billion are both big numbers, but one is astronomically larger than the other. So the fall from grace that this company has had, I think a big part of it is not just that they've not been able to find customers for their service. They had a major data breach back in 2023. Mm-hmm. And not only did they have a data breach where they lost data of 7 million of their customers, they handle it about as poorly as you possibly could for a company that has genetic data on people. So I think that one of the problems for 23andMe is that they ran into a situation where people just simply don't trust them and weren't signing up for the last 2.5 years. And that has just wreaked havoc on their stock price.
Yeah, 23andMe said in court documents that were reviewed by 404 Media that since attackers got personal data about 7 million of 23andMe's customers, that was back in October of 2023, including health-related information based on the user genetics, it has been facing over 50 class action and state court lawsuits, and that approximately 35,000 claimants have initiated, filed, or threatened to commence arbitration claims against the company. This is the company talking. But yeah, you might say, well, I mean, if their tech is so great, why would they be filing for bankruptcy? Well, lawsuits have a lot to do with that. 2023 was not a good year for 23andMe, to put it mildly. And yeah, at this point, I also I wonder if this is the kind of company that suffers from, if you wanted to do it, you would have done it already. They're not signing up a lot of people. Like someone like me, I'm like, maybe I'll do that someday. I don't know. My family's from Ireland. I don't really know what you're going to tell me that I don't already know. But yeah, I think it's the company has suffered from just sort of, I don't know, people not being all that interested anymore. And also a lot of lawsuits from people saying, hold on a second, what's going on with my data exactly? And it will, I'm sure, only compound with whoever ends up buying the company.
I'm looking at their site now, and it says, what happens to my data if the company is sold or otherwise changes ownership? If the company does change ownership in the future, your data will remain protected under the current 23andMe privacy policy unless and until you are presented with materially new terms with appropriate advance notice to review those material changes as required by law. So that didn't really tell me much of it.
No, all that says is that they're going to send you like, hey, our terms and conditions have changed. And then you won't read the email, and then your data gets sold.
When you get sold, the rules will change. We'll notify you to let you know when. That's basically what they just told you.
And then account deletion. If you delete your account, if you're going to delete your data, it deletes everyone on the account. So like my wife and I are both on the same account. We have two different profiles. So if you have somebody that wants to be deleted and someone else that does not, that just make sure you do the proper steps in there, and they're outlined in the sheet. So,
Well, this story will be unfolding. We'll obviously keep you updated as much as we know going forward. But changing gears now, Rob, we talked about the U.S. Senate wanting to get rid of Section 230. We talked about this very briefly on Friday, but let's dive a little bit deeper into what's really going on.
Yes, sir. So as you said, we did mention this on last week's show, Friday, I believe it was, but a bipartisan bill aiming to repeal Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which shields social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, X, as well as other sites that host user-generated content, is expected to be introduced in the Senate as soon as this week. So often referred to as the 26 words that made the internet, Section 230 was crucial to growth of the online world in the early 2000s by providing legal protections to internet service providers and websites. The proposed legislation comes amid ongoing clashes between big tech and government over free speech and antitrust issues. So ultimately, what the senators want to do is they want to get rid of this. And so just to be very clear, what does Section 230 actually do? So it enables online platforms such as media sites, blogs, listservs, social media sites, clearly, to moderate content without fearing excessive lawsuits. Because, before Section 230, you couldn't just go change what people were saying without the people who were saying it getting upset and maybe wanting to sue you. And Section 230 basically allowed companies to get around that. It also does not hold these companies liable for things that people say. So people can say some very, very heinous things, and that may show up in someone's feed on a social media platform, for example. And Section 230 keeps that social media platform from being held liable for the things that were said by an actual user. So I am on the record. I have been on both sides of the argument with this. Proponents argue that Section 230 promotes a free and open internet. Critics contend that it either hinders platforms from addressing illegal content like abuse and harassment, or it gives them too much power to remove legal content. I agree with all of that. All of that stuff is correct. And, what I hope we don't do is overcorrect for an issue. I do believe that there were issues with Section 230. I also believe that if Section 230 didn't exist, you now put yourself in a situation to where, whoever is upset with what is said is going to bring a lawsuit. I guarantee that that's what's going to happen. So I hope that these senators are really thinking about these things, and maybe they put some wrappers in here to where maybe you don't just get rid of it, you actually fix some of the things that may be a problem with it right now.
Yeah. I don't really know where I fall on this, to be honest. I believe that Section 230 makes sense in theory. The company, let's just say, everyone who works at any company, call it a hypothetical company, whatever, is trying to just have, a good discourse, lots of text and photos and videos being shared, et cetera, et cetera. The company itself, if I, as, a bad actor, go in and start posting stuff that does not align with the company's values, upsets other people, is the company liable for that, because of what I did? I think some companies do this a lot better than other companies. And the bigger the company is, the harder it is to be able to take care of all the bad actors. That's just the way it goes. And you think of Facebook or X, or it's it's just it's a whack-a-mole situation. You're really even if your moderation team is the best in the biz, you're never going to fully be on top of that because people just like to be childish, or worse. So that's why Section 230 giving companies, the sort of the grace to be like, hey, we're trying. Here's how we're trying, and we're not trying. We're not getting all the stuff. But please, don't shut us down because we're trying. I think that's a decent argument. But at the same time, again, like you said, Rob, depending on who's in charge and what they want the bad, nefarious things to be and not to be, that does change the situation.
So here's an example. I believe it was back in 2021, Senator Amy Klobuchar, who actually is one of the senators who was signed on to sponsor this bill. She proposed a bill that would have given the head of the Health and Human Services, basically the Secretary of Health and Human Services, would have given them the right to designate what was to be considered medical or health misinformation. That could be very problematic because my gut would tell me, Senator Amy Klobuchar is a Democrat. She probably would have agreed with what the democratically appointed head of Health and Human Services would have said about medical information back then. We now have a different administration in place. My gut tells me that she would not necessarily agree with everything that the current head of that department says. So you just get into depending on who's in office, the truth could change as far as what, these companies could do. So I don't think that companies really want to be in that situation. But I do understand that there are some very, very problematic issues with Section 230 because we have seen, there have been children who have been cyberbullied. They've literally had children who have taken their life over things that have happened online, and the companies are not held liable for that, even though they may have been able to do some things to get that information off. It's like, hey, our hands are clean of this. We didn't say it. It was somebody on our platform that said it. I do believe that most platforms, they try to be as good as they can with that, but that's some platforms. That's not all platforms. So I just hope that what the senators are doing here, that they don't just whack-a-mole this thing. I hope that they actually put some real thought into it, because the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. You've got proponents who want it. You've got people who are for it who are proponents who don't want it. You've got people who are for it who do want it. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And I hope that they figure out what that middle is as compared to just taking a broad sword to this and just getting rid of it altogether, because you will see lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And I think a lot of the utility and usefulness of the internet will change significantly if these companies now are all held for literally everything that is posted on their websites.
Well, and going back to just sort of moderation in general. Okay, let's use X. I'm just throwing it out there as an example. If X had no moderation at all, I was not able to, report spam or harassment or, a variety of other things that I am currently on the platform. If X was just sort of like, we just, it's a free for all. It's not us. It's you. You are responsible for what you say and what you do. That is true. But if there's no moderation, then it turns into like a 4chan or 8chan type situation where it's like, okay, well, some people actually like that. Some people like the idea of just being like, you know what? Everyone can say whatever they want to say. As long as you're not physically hurting anybody, this is what the web was made for. Not everybody feels that way. And especially when you're a public company, you can't feel that way. If you do, you're gonna have a world of hurt, and you're gonna have a lot of lawsuits. And like you said, Rob, you're gonna have situations that happen that people then go back to the platform and say, you made this happen. Maybe you didn't want it to happen, but you allowed it to happen.
I think it's 26 words. It's entirely too simple. We have to complicate it. So let's go ahead and just throw spaghetti at it until all the words are in there, and it's about 300 pages long, and nobody knows what any of it means, because we're going to end up in the same position we are now. This is already solved by the Federation. The people can go on to Blue Sky and the little verses that we have and choose one that aligns with what you want to see on the internet, and that's what we need to do. You just need to stop using sites that allow things that don't align with what you want to see. It's a self-regulating problem, but of course we're not going to allow people to do that.
Well, I know for a fact that many of you out there have thoughts on this. If you want to have your thought heard, a great way to do it is in our subreddit. You can submit a story, vote on other stories, get them floating up to the top so we see them and we know that you care about them. Reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. So Amos, you are probably the biggest traveler of the group here. You traveled out of the country a couple times as of late and wanted to remind us of some security and privacy concerns, or at least things we should have on our radar.
Yeah, so crossing into the U.S. Right now poses some serious risks to your digital privacy, especially under stricter border policies in the current administration. Multiple news reports show that travelers, both foreign and American, are facing increased device searches, detentions, and potential entry denial based on the content of their phones or laptops, including political opinions. While U.S. citizens and green card holders can legally refuse to share passwords, risking possible detention, non-citizens may be denied entry at all. With legal protection still unclear, the safest option is to carry as little sensitive information as possible. So I got from a couple articles I read, there's 6 protective measures recommended by the experts. I would like to discuss with you guys which ones would you do and which ones are just too far over the line for you to work on. Mm-hmm. All right. Step 1, alert someone, as in let people know when you're crossing the border, when you're expected to, when you're actually going to be in customs and crossing the border itself. This one seems fairly easy to me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I was crossing a border, everyone's different, but I'm probably going to see someone on the other side, so they would know where I was. And that would be fairly easy for me to be like, hey, just so you know, here I am.
This takes travel insurance to a whole new level, because it used to be you just wanted to protect the trip in case something happened. Now you want to make sure that you ensure somebody knows where you are at all times in case you actually get hemmed up in customs at some point.
This is so I've gone to Canada twice in the last 4 months or so. And the first time I was flying, it's easy when you're flying, you just give somebody your travel plans. Like, here's, obviously when I'm going to be going through the things, it's no big deal. Driving, on the other hand, was a little different. We knew exactly when we'd be crossing the border to go into Canada, but coming back across the border, there's no cell coverage or anything else. So we had to let people know ahead of time, hey, today's our day, we're crossing over. It still wasn't that big of a deal, but it's a very low, friction point. The next thing we have here, securing devices. And this has got a few steps to it. Using encryption on your electronic devices, setting strong alphanumeric passcodes, no biometrics, disabling features like Siri or other voice controllers on the lock screen, or other ways to get into the phone or other device without having to actually use a PIN. Although of all these, I like the very last one, and that is turning your devices off before you cross customs.
Oh, because even if they made you turn it back on, you'd be like, well,
the first thing you have to do is put a pin in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't remember the pin.
Now, the no biometrics part, biometrics I love because it makes my life easier, but I'm also not going across borders all that often these days. Is the fear that you could be held against your will and forced to open up a device with your face? Or your fingerprint.
So the two problems here are that courts have held that you can't be compelled to provide a password under normal circumstances, but you can be held to look at your phone or look in the direction of your phone, have them hold it up in front of you to unlock with your face, or hold a finger and unlock it with your fingerprint. Mm-hmm. It's very muddy, that area right there. So if you don't have the biometrics enabled at all, or if you turn your device off, the first thing it's going to want is a PIN, not a biometric. Then that covers that, and you don't have. There's that murky ground you don't have to even be part of.
Yeah, and also I know that you can do this on Android. I believe you can also do this on iOS. If you hold your power button in, you can automatically make it go into a mode to where it automatically asks you for the PIN, even if you have recently authenticated with it. That's a good thing to know, because I will never hand my phone to anyone where they could just point it at me and it unlocks it and it's in their person, and I have to, potentially put hands on them to get it back. That's just not going to be a situation I ever want to put myself in. So right. Yeah, I make sure that if I ever hand my phone to anyone, the biometrics are not are enabled. I actually disable them every single time.
Right. Yeah. For me, this was really easy. I just turned everything off before we crossed the border. And then once we were safely across, turned them back on. It wasn't a problem.
What about number 3, Amos?
Using clean travel devices. Bringing this is basically having like an old phone that you leave your current phone at home with all your stuff on it, your logins, everything else. You have an old phone and you bring that with you, and it doesn't have your social media logins or anything else on it. It just has the basics that you need to communicate.
Yeah, like
while
if
you're
you
overseas.
have to look up something on Chrome.
Right,
it doesn't know all sorts of other things about you.
Right. This is not associated with your normal accounts. It's just the basics that you need. This could even be such as a flip phone with the SIM card you can pop out and pop back in, something like that. It's, a dumb phone that doesn't need to have all the accounts hooked up to it.
So when I used to work in the corporate world, and this is before broadband is where it is now, to where we just have these ridiculously fast speeds. One of the things that we would do, it's kind of interesting. We're talking about coming into the United States now that you want to pay attention to these, but going into other countries, we absolutely would be, be aware of what the rules and the laws were in those countries. So one of the things that various companies that I work for that we would do is that if we needed to go overseas, we would basically take our laptops with us, but before we left, we would ship our hard drives with whatever data separately from us. That way we could not be compelled to actually, because I literally may have, a couple of laptops with hard drives in them with source code to like our next new product release or something like that. And depending on where you're going, you just don't want that stuff to get out. So we literally would ship over our drives on external hard drives. We would just put them in the mail and they're encrypted and they would just go in the mail. We would go at the same time. And we would just make sure that when we get wherever we're going, the hard drives are there. We could, plug them in, put our encryption key in, and you're up and running. So that was something that we did in the corporate world. As you're saying, Amos, this might be something you want to now do when you're just personally traveling. You just take your SIM card out so it's not in your phone. Make sure everything is locked down, turn it off. We have to think about different things now when we travel, because the rules are different depending on where you travel to.
Yeah. Using the hard drive swap thing is something we used to do when we were deployed, because we'd go to countries where certain digital materials weren't allowed. So we'd have, our personal records and photos of the family back home, things like that. You don't put that on your computer when you're crossing into or out of the country. You have your significant other ship that to you once you get in place and you've got an address, things like that. Number 4 is minimize data exposure. Basically kind of the same thing. Just log out of everything and have everything backed up to the cloud and basically wipe your devices before you go. This to me is a little bit too far, but I'm not carrying around super sensitive things.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say this, that's kind of where I land too, is like, I don't know, look through my phone if you want to. You guys, I'm not that interesting, but that's not really the point, right? The point is privacy is privacy. And it doesn't, well, it does matter what you're hiding, but if you want your data to be private, then that is your right. And yeah, if you have a cloud service that everything is synced to, which for sure is the situation with me, then yeah, that's something to think about. If anyone could get into my iPhone right now, they can go back to like 2010 and see all sorts of things I've been doing for the last 25 years. Truly, or 15. Yeah, math is hard.
And Rob, I know you'll agree with this one. Number 5 is update your OS. Just make sure you've got all the patches done before you leave.
That's a big one. Just updating your OS. Apple, Google, Microsoft, and various makers of Linux, they tend to take security pretty importantly, usually. So if they say, hey, here's a security update that solves this problem that you might have that allows people to exfiltrate data off of your device, you might want to listen and do those updates.
Yep. And finally, the last one, and we've already covered this a little bit, but I can't emphasize this enough. Keep your passwords to yourself. At least as a U.S. citizen, you cannot be compelled to provide a password without going through many levels of court. They're not going to, you might end up taking a couple days to get out of detention if they hold you for some weirder reason, but keep your passwords to yourself. You don't have
your
to
right
give
is your
anything.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are 4 or 6 of the things. If you're going overseas, just be careful. No matter where you lie politically, there's people out there trying to get your data, and Customs and Border Patrol is just one more group of people you need to watch out for.
Yeah. And it sounds like, I mean, with the steps that you just laid out, Amos, there are a lot of ways where you're just sort of like, hey, I'm not trying to be, screw anybody over. I'm just, my phone is just off.
Yep.
And I welcome entry into your country.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of a company that has had a lot of data scrutiny as of late, Chinese AI lab DeepSeek just released their latest version of their DeepSeek V3 model with an MIT license. That's new. It was previously DeepSeek's custom license. This one bakes the release date into the name, so DeepSeek V3 0324. Get it? 0324. Mm-hmm. The model comes in at 641 gigabytes. That is very small. Developer Simon Willison notes that MLX developer Anwei Huan already has it running at over 20 tokens per second on a 512 gigabyte M3 Ultra Max Studio, reducing the size to 352 gigabytes. It's available via Open Router and has a chat feature where users can interact with the model, so that sort of thing. Willison also shared a new tool for checking Hugging Face repository sizes. Speaking of sizes, this is small as heck. And, the whole thing with DeepSeek is sort of like, wait a second. So DeepSeek is doing what OpenAI is doing for so much less money put into it. That was the first version of the story that we heard when DeepSeek kind of came on the scene, which was, just a couple months ago. The fact that the model could run at such a low level. I mean, I could run this at my house with my current hardware.
Yeah, a Mac Studio is not a little PC. Is not there's significant resources in that PC, but
Yes.
This is something you can literally go to Best Buy or the Apple Store or various computer electronics stores and just buy one right off the shelf. This is not a server room that's the size of a basketball court, or in some cases the size of the size of several football fields. When you think about what DeepSeek is doing, because humans are very, very bad at comparison, we literally are talking about something the size that's Sarah, you just recently got one of the new Mac Minis. Mm-hmm. The Mac Studio is what, 3 times the size of the new thin Mac Mini. I mean, it's relatively small. It will sit on your desk under a monitor, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Compare that to a basketball court with servers every 4 feet for the entire width and length of a basketball court. That's how big some of these data centers that are running these other models are compared to what DeepSeek can run. That is significant. And then you think about the number of resources that it takes to do that. It's just dwindled by what some of these other bigger LLMs take. So, we talked about this in our in our pre-show. OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, they are looking very, very closely at what DeepSeek is doing, and they're trying to figure out how to do the same, because there's we're going to run into a problem if everything that we do costs, inordinately a lot compared to everything they do. And that's kind of where we are right now. It is significantly less expensive because it takes significantly less resources to run it. Mm-hmm. And it's getting you fairly equivalent types of results. Not everything, but a lot of what you use LLMs for, DeepSeek is just fine.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past. It's like, what is tangible here? If there's a piece of, you're talking about my Mac Mini versus a Mac Studio versus any other, tower-based computing system that I could possibly choose to put in my office. That is a tangible thing where it looks different. It works differently. I mean, if it's fast enough, it can process data roughly the same way. But that's a tangible thing where you're like, no, this is the product that I like because of all these different reasons. I think that we're getting into the conversation, and we've talked about this with DeepSeek before, but something that works as well as another model works, and by all accounts, lot of less money put into the research for that model, because we're all kind of working with the same data set, at the end of the day. It's like, well, I mean, do you think like OpenAI is prestige data? I don't know. I don't know how many people feel that way. I mean, sure, if you're doing some sort of very, very specific research and you are comparing, Perplexity and Claude and all the other options that you have, maybe you say, you know what, this one is actually way better for me for this particular situation. But otherwise, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of getting a race to like, who can do this the cheapest?
We had Andrea Joy on last week, and we were talking about one of the stories that she brought up. We were talking about how we could use LLMs to do these things where you can find a medicine that has side effects that may actually be the primary effect for another disease. Mm-hmm. And it may take the big LLMs to do that. But for me, I'm like, make this 3 paragraphs, a page of text that I'm looking at, put it in the bullet points for me and summarize it so that I can actually talk about it effectively. That
Make this a Substack post.
So
Rob and I do this every day.
Exactly. So rephrase this, make it, take something from 5 paragraphs down to 1. Give me a sentence. Summarize it. Those kind of things DeepSeek is really, really good for. And it is so much less costly because it runs on so fewer resources. So as I said, I think you're going to see the OpenAIs of the world and the Perplexities of the world and the Googles of the world. They are going to be looking to create their own models that are just not as resource intensive, just like DeepSeek has done, because it's going to be, when customers are saying, I want to pay less money as compared to paying more for this thing, that is going to wreck their business model if folks are using these less expensive models that they did not create.
And I don't know, if you are listening to this and being like, I mean, how many models are we going to have? I mean, doesn't OpenAI have like so many different models now? The answer is yes. What about DeepSeek? The answer is yes. Gemini, definitely yes. Perplexity, also yes. It's like we are in that mode, exactly what you're talking about, Rob, where companies are like, let's just try all the models. Eventually, we're going to sunset some of them because they're just not going to be what people need. Let's figure out, what's the fastest, what's the most nimble, what's the one that's like really good for coding. And I don't think they're, right now it's like every company has like 10 versions of them. It's like, hey, if you don't want to pay for ChatGPT, which I don't, then you get like ChatGPT for like a few queries, and then we're just going to cut you off. If you want to pay for Pro, then you have a whole other thing. If you're part of a company that a lot of people are going to be using this, then you go a step further. But right now it's like O3, A1. There's so many of them because we're still in the early days. We're in these early days of companies just being like, let's just figure out what sticks.
Yeah. And right now throwing the spaghetti at the wall is exactly what they should be doing, because they're trying to find out what they can build and what they can use that build for. And we're going to go through this expansion. I don't even think we're in the beginning of the expansion yet. Like, we're going to have a massive expansion with more companies getting into it, more models for each of those companies. We're not even halfway through this, I don't think. And then once we get good use cases, we've got a decent efficiency, we'll start to see a contraction of the base, and we'll start having those models merge in together, and you'll start getting really good ones that are standing out from the rest that others are going to try to keep up with, that can do all the things, and we'll end up with 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 that are just really good at certain things, and that's what we'll stick with.
And
but right now they're just really trying everything out to see what works and what doesn't. So
I can't wait till we get to the point to where we are with our LLMs, where we just don't care what version they are. Like, I think about Chrome. If I needed to look to tell you what version of Chrome, I know where to go look, but I have no clue as to what version of Chrome I'm using. It's just Chrome update, okay, update, and then I'm just using it. I'd love to get there with LLMs. And I know I've said this on another episode, but I would like to see an LLM figure out which model it uses based off of my query, instead of, okay, I have to think about, I need this model because I want to do this, or I need that model because I want to do that. I don't want to think about all that. I want to just type stuff and I get really cool answers back that make my life easier. That's where I think most people are on this. So I cannot wait for the day to where we just update our LLMs like we update Chrome. We don't know what they are unless somebody asks us to go look.
At the most, let me put in my query, then you come back and say, well, which answer it best fits, which you like, and I'll select one, and then you know which model you need. But don't ask me the model ahead of time. Let me ask my question first. Yeah, exactly.
We love getting your feedback. Every day we get tons of your feedback, and sometimes it makes it into the show. So let's check out the mailbag.
Adam in Fairport Harbor, Ohio. And Adam is awesome because he's from Ohio. I had to look up where Fairport Harbor was. It's up on a lake. Clearly, it's a harbor town.
Northeast of Cleveland.
Right, it is. But I hadn't heard of it until today. But Adam in Fairport Harbor wrote in about our discussion Friday about automotive safety. He writes, I recently leased a Polestar 3 EV that has Apple CarPlay available and will have Google Auto in a future software update. What's interesting is the vehicle was developed with a modular chip setup, and Polestar will be replacing a chip with a new NVIDIA chip later this year that will help the infotainment run smoother and faster.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, you got to go into a dealership, I suppose, which would probably be a Volvo dealership if it's Polestar that we're talking about. But I would love to know how seamless or not seamless this ends up being, Adam.
How great would it be if we could replace the infotainment center of our vehicles as easy as we used to replace a CD player? Like, you just pop it out, put the plugs in, put the new one in. It's a lot. That was a lot easier than replacing your infotainment center now.
Oh yeah, it's like, what are you gonna? Like, you would have to. I mean, like, you're ripping out that
already
thing.
There. Yeah, the screen's already there. The button's already there. Just let me swap out a box to update this stuff. Like, come on,
that's not gonna happen. Sarah, there was a day when I had a car that might have cost 15. This is like in the 80s. It might have been a $1,500 car, and I probably, over the couple years I had that car until I went off to college, probably put $2,000 to $3,000 worth of stereo equipment in it. So you could definitely swap some stuff out back in the day.
Oh no, you definitely could. You definitely could. Yeah, I had like in my 1984 Honda Civic, first car I ever had. Great car, loved it. But kind of an old car. It had like a stock stereo, and one of the like for my birthday one year, like my parents like gave me like a cooler stereo, which is still just like cassette. It's not that cool. But yeah, and then it got stolen because that's what happens to Hondas. So yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that happened.
It's also what happens to stereos.
It's what happens to stereos. But yes, thank you, Adam, for the on the ground report. And yeah, let us know. Let us know what goes on with that new NVIDIA chip. We'd love to hear an update on that. We also got a response from Andre about our audio quiz we had last Friday. We do quizzes on Fridays, and last Friday it was all audio all the time. Andre wrote, the Windows XP startup sound is such a happy sound for me. It's a reflection on how much time I spent with XP. I think my positive experience, or the fact that I use XP on all my work computers, is one of the reasons that I use a Windows laptop to this day. Got me thinking about Siri and Clippy. I liked Clippy, but I don't really remember it being useful. I wonder if Siri's legacy will be the same. The only thing I regularly use her for is setting timers. Any other use tends to not be reliable. Is she the new Clippy? I mean, I don't know. That's tough stuff. I don't know. Andre, I'm not sure who else says like, oh, I remember Clippy fondly.
I don't remember C-level executives being shuffled around because Clippy wasn't overly useful though. So
Yeah,
there's
that. Yeah.
I know what Clippy is. Clippy. I've seen Clippy used, but my experience with Clippy was uninstalling it from PCs that I might have managed back in the day. It was
I think you're not alone.
How did that get there? Click, gone.
That's the whole reason that Clippy to this day is like people. It's like, oh yeah, Clippy. Like, what was it good for? Nothing. I mean, it was good for stuff. It just it solved a problem people didn't have.
Once in a while, it reminded you to save your progress on the document you were working on.
Sure. My grandfather would have said that dog just didn't hunt. it just did.
No, didn't do it. I wonder, SIRI, which I'll say because I'm not trying to wake up everybody's systems. I think it's different than Clippy. I know that Amazon's assistant, Apple's assistant, Google's assistant, they all suffer from, people being like, what's this really for? Besides, like setting a calendar date or, maybe doing some like calculator stuff that I just, I can do, using my voice. I don't know. All of these assistants are going to get more, they're going to get more interesting. They're going to get smarter. They're going to become more helpful, but you have to use them in order for that to matter. So we'll see.
Hopefully the Apple Assistant that sounds like Terry will be much, much better sometime next year when when next year's version of iOS comes out. Let's just hope.
Let's hope.
Remember, folks, you can send your comments in to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We love to hear from you, and that's how you can let us know what's going on. We also have been pulling up submissions from the show for folks who have been, listening. They have been submitting submissions over at DTNS.showbot.tv, and we have got some pretty good ones over there. So just wanted to go through a few of them. Let's see here. Do I hear 24 and me? By Stealth Dave.
That's funny.
That is a good one.
Yes. 24. Do I hear 24? Mm-hmm.
Stealth Dave is going to get two in a row because this one is a good one. Dunewood nucleic acid, DNA. I really like that one.
Oh, got it.
A new level of travel insurance, JPEG 84.
Yeah, talking about Amos's going across the border. Mm-hmm. Yep. I like that.
So let's see here. Deleting your DNA is difficult. That is also JPEG 84. Zoe brings bacon. Be private about privacy. W. Scottus 1. AI raised to the bottom, but in a good way. So yeah, we've got a fair amount of titles and we got a lot of votes. So Sarah, what did we go with today?
Well, Fred 819, you are our winner. Everyone's a winner in our eyes, but Fred 819's 23 and Flee is our show title for today. That's a good one. You guys were very creative today. Thank you for that. We would expect nothing less. But 23 and Flee was that was just going to be our title.
It's a good one. It's a huge story. And like I said, it's like humans are bad at comparison. 50 million and 6 billion they're both unattainable numbers for regular people, but 6 billion is so much bigger than 50 million. And that's what the company, it's not even worth 50 million because when the news of this came out today, the stock price even tanked even more than it has been for the last several years. So it's it may not even be worth 50 million at this point. So it will be interesting to see what happens, with that. I don't tell people what to do, But if you were to ask me for my opinion, I would be like Amos and, bend and bear it and, grin and bear it and just go through and spend the time that you need to delete your stuff off that platform, because once it gets sold, you just don't know what is going to happen, because eventually you're going to get an email that's going to say rules have changed. We now just sold your data to an insurance company.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to go to the spam folder, and you're not going to see it until 3 days after the expiration.
Well, and when we were talking about this earlier, it's like, I mean, we were talking sort of about the kind of hand wringing aspect of like what happens to your data. It's like, even if nothing happens to your data, which is unlikely, but let's say that's the case, I think that 23andMe and other companies that offer competing services have gotten to the point where if you wanted to do it, you've already done it. If if this is something that's very deeply interesting to you, you're doing your family tree type thing, you've probably already done that. It's hard to keep selling this to people like me who are sort of like, I don't need this. And I think that that plus data breach for with a bunch of data that people who did care about this ended up feeling like, okay, well now that's out in the wild. That's a big problem.
Data breach is
I live
huge.
by the token. I live by the token that the privacy is a lie. There's no such thing as privacy. People can find out things about you if they want to. If they're determined enough, they're going to find out. But also, I'm not going to leave my windows open at night for people to steal my stuff in my house. I understand
Right.
you can get it, but I'm not just going to like openly welcome you to it. So deleting the stuff from 23andMe may not
when
be
I lock
effective,
my
but I'm gonna
car
do it anyway.
at the grocery store, it's like, do you want something from my car? There's nothing in there. But I mean, I don't want to, make it easy for you to like rummage through it.
It's about the barrier of entry, not thinking that it's secure.
Right.
We don't know what's going to happen when they emerge from bankruptcy protection. But here is a rule of thumb. Assume that the worst thing that could happen is going to happen and act accordingly. That is how you protect yourself.
That's the safest way. Yep.
Indeed. Well, Amos, we have people to thank today, don't we?
We do. In fact, Nariman gave us a raise on Patreon. Thank you so much for that. We got a super chat from Chris Hunter, so that's awesome. I really appreciate that. And as far as Twitch goes, we got we got some bits from Zoe Brings Bacon, of course. We got some Techno Mensch resubscribed with Prime for the 24th month. And DB1802XX gave us a follow, and we really appreciate all of those. Every bit of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, folks. Thank you.
Indeed. So many of you support us. Thank you for the millionth time. But if you are a DTNS supporter, we would love for you to, rock a t-shirt, maybe a mug, maybe a mouse pad, something with our new DTNS Live logo, perchance. They're great looking ways to support us and let folks know, hey, I like this show. It's a good conversation starter. Robb knows all about it. Ask me about my podcast. And please send if you want to pictures of yourself with rocking the tea, using a mug, or anything in between. Maybe a mug and a t-shirt with your dog wearing the t-shirt. That would be fun. I'd be into that. But all kidding aside, dailytechnewsshow.com/store is where to find out more about how to support us monetarily. And we thank you in advance. Just a reminder, we are live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Tomorrow, Nika Monford is joining us talking about Apple TV losing money, but has great shows. What is the end game? Nika has thoughts. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.